Greetings and welcome all once again to another press briefing with the government of the Virgin Islands. I'm Chief Information Officer Desiree Smith, and it's my pleasure, as always, to welcome you to these live events. And today we have a one-on-one press briefing with Premier Wheatley and Deputy Premier Honorable Reimer. Premier and Minister of Finance, Dr. the Honorable Natalia D. Wheatley, he'll be providing updates on his attendance at the OECS Authority meeting and other current matters, while his colleague, the Deputy Premier and Minister for Communication and Works, Honorable Kaya Reimer, will be providing updates from his ministerial portfolio. So without further delay, we'll turn our attention to the Premier for his updates and then listen to Honorable Reimer with his updates. Premier, please.
Thank you, Desiree, and good morning to the people of the Virgin Islands and members of the media. I'm proud to sit here wearing pink in recognition of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We remember those we have lost to the scourge of cancer. We celebrate the tenacity of spirit of the survivors, and we urge everyone to examine your breasts so you can be aware of any significant changes and to get annual mammograms to ensure that your breasts are safe and healthy. I also want to recognize Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which we wore purple in recognition of last Friday. I'm concerned that domestic violence cases are reportedly up, but I'm happy that persons are breaking the silence and reporting these cases. I call on all persons to resolve differences peacefully and responsibly. We also recognize those who have worked hard to bring awareness to the condition known as spina bifida. I'm grateful for the knowledge of how persons right here in the BVI are impacted by this condition and how we can support them. Again, I take this opportunity to congratulate the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak on being appointed British Prime Minister or Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. We look forward to engaging with the Prime Minister's new administration on developing a truly modern partnership. Earlier this week, we learned that the Right Honourable Jesse Norman was appointed a minister in the Ministry of Transport. We look forward to the announcement of the new Overseas Territories Minister. Unfortunately, the Joint Ministerial Council, scheduled to take place in just over a week, has been postponed. We look forward to a new date in the near future where we can engage with the new minister and the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office along with our OT colleagues. I'm grateful for the support of the leaders of the OECS who have stood by the Virgin Islands as we go through this period of reform while defending our democratic rights. It is important to have our regional counterparts hold all parties accountable to our obligations under the UN, including Article 73. It was an honor to give my maiden address to the OECS, and we are grateful to Premier Joseph Farrell and the government of Montserrat for their warm hospitality. On the local front, I would like to update the public on a very important cabinet decision, which established what is now known as the RATED program. This program was formulated to provide services to belongers in our community who are unemployed and underemployed. RATED is an acronym which stands for Registration, Apprenticeship, Training, Employment, and Development. The concept is providing individuals with training and apprenticeship opportunities to develop the knowledge and skills to become more marketable in the workplace. It also provides temporary employment opportunities in the public sector and makes linkages with the private sector. Public sector activities include farming and beautification and other areas. This group will also be provided with opportunities for self-development through life skills courses and access to motivational speakers. You will learn more about the RATED program in the coming days and weeks. This week also, I met with the UK agency responsible for investigating marine accidents. We would all be aware of the boating accident recently that claimed the lives of a young woman and a 6-year-old girl. I look forward to the report from this agency and the lessons that we can learn from this accident to improve safety on the water. We continue to pray for the families of the deceased. Finally, I reiterate calls to the community to support our law enforcement agencies in bringing to justice the individuals responsible for the horrific murders last week. We continue to pray for the families affected, and we call on the community to unite in condemnation of this reckless act of violence. I will now turn over to the Deputy Premier and Minister of Communications and Works, Honorable Kai Raymer.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning to the beautiful people of these Virgin Islands. And of course, this includes you, the members of the press here today. As I took a few trips, duty travel, in the past few weeks, I think it's necessary to update you, the public, on the outcome or what took place during those trips. Firstly, cruise. As a new tourist season is upon us, we in the Virgin Islands have good reason to be optimistic that this will be a very good season. Firstly, the BVI has been performing very well as a destination, especially on our cruise subsector. The available figures show that the BVI's cruise arrivals reached 70% of pre-COVID-19 pandemic volumes over the past year. The global cruise industry experts have been forecasting full recovery for the industry in 2023. For the upcoming 2022-2023 season, I am pleased to report that the expected calls increased to 417, with 79 of those calls being multiple days on our sister islands. I would like to remind the public also of the confirmed new brands calling to the territory for the 2022-2023 season and beyond, coming out of our discussions at this year's Seatrade Cruise Global event. That and of the Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection and Virgin Cruises now slated for the 2023-2024 season. We continue to build strong relationships with our industry partners, such as the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association, FCCA, which held its 2022 conference in Santo Domingo about 3 weeks ago, as I mentioned earlier. The BVI was ably represented at the conference by members of the BVI Ports Authority, members of BVI Tourist Board, and as we held discussions with major industry players to strengthen our position in the market. The FCCA has described the BVI as a rock-solid partner, and this is good for our reputation as a destination. It is important for us to understand the huge impact the cruise industry has on our economy and in providing for the livelihood of many of our people. The cruise industry benefits our BVI economy with employment and entrepreneurial opportunities across the industry, across the territory. The cruise line industry associations, CLIA, State of the Industry 2022 report shows that every 24 cruise guests the industry books equate to one full-time job. The report shows that cruise tourists spend an average of $750 per passenger in port cities over the course of a typical 7-day cruise. This is a spend of $107.14 per day per passenger that our people and our economy can benefit from cruise visitors. Just to give you an idea of the amount of money that is to be earned from the cruise industry, in 2016, Business Research and Economic Advisors, BREA, estimated that the BVI economy earned $55 million from cruise passenger spend based on 700,000 passengers and an average spend of $78 per passenger per day. The average passenger spend has increased to $107.14, and therefore, with the same volume of arrivals, we are looking at potentially $75 million coming into our economy from cruise alone. So let us not underestimate the cruise industry, and let us put our best effort in making sure our cruise visitors enjoy their time with us. Further, the CLEARS report indicates that 6 in 10 people who have taken a cruise say that they have returned to a destination that they have first visited via a cruise ship. So, cruise is a valuable opportunity for introducing our destination to new potential visitors. There is a 60% chance that a cruise traveler who spends 1 or 2 days in the Virgin Islands can return with their family and friends for a longer planned vacation, staying in our hotels and accommodations, chartering boats, renting vehicles, riding in taxis, patronizing restaurants and bars, purchasing tours, and more. I also want to point out that there are potential opportunities for Virgin Islanders to secure work with the cruise ships. But in order to access these jobs, persons must be certified in standards of training, certification, and watchkeeping for safe farers, STCW. The H.L. Lavity Stoutt Community College is provided to deliver this training and certification at the Paraquita Bay campus. So persons interested in working on the cruise ships, and there are many opportunities, they are advised to contact the college to become STCW certified. A couple weeks ago, I also traveled to Las Vegas to the Routes Conference, and I'll turn to airlift. And as I reported in the House of Assembly on Tuesday, 25th October, the government is continuing our efforts to increase airlift to the Virgin Islands so that we can make traveling easier and more affordable for all our residents and visitors, which is important for our tourism industry and our economy. As the minister responsible for the airports, I led a delegation that included officials from the BVI Airports Authority and BVI Tourist Board to the Routes World 2022 event in Las Vegas. This annual event is the premier global forum for the commercial aviation industry, and it brings together over 2,500 major service providers from around the world and in all aspects of the industry under one roof. Routes is where the key decision makers in the aviation industry interact and initiate business relationships and arrangements. Over the 3 days of event, from the 16th to the 18th of October, the BVI delegation had substantial discussions with executives of 8 major airlines, 2 airports authorities, 1 tourism body, and 1 airport management company. Our strategy was that in addition to pursuing direct flight from the US, we would scout and initiate other opportunities to increase airlift and to generate more business for our tourism industry, which is one of our economic drivers, and which is how a large segment of our population earns their livelihood. These meetings were very fruitful and provided us with a lot of opportunities for our development in the BVI. We recognize also that we have to begin nurturing the relationship and the interest from now, so that when the runway expansion is completed, flights can easily and quickly begin operating. This is because the airlines plan their routes well in advance. A few of the airlines, with the current length, it was prohibitive. However, many showed keen interest in coming to the BVI once it becomes possible for them to do so. They told us that they have noted that the volume of their existing passengers who are coming to the BVI through different connecting airports, so that they know that the market is a viable one. We obtained some leads for collaborating with other airlines, other airport authorities, and tourism bodies to increase the traffic coming to the region, which will allow us to increase our visitors to the territory. We will be following up on these leads, supplying requested information, and having follow-up conversations. With that being said, with having more persons come to our territory, I think it's necessary for me to speak about our roads. And let me say that the government is mindful that good infrastructure is important for the comfort of our residents and also for supporting our industries, and especially industries like tourism, where it is important to leave lasting positive impressions. Persons would recall that some time ago, I announced that we had purchased an asphalt plant for the territory, which is a critical piece of equipment in our comprehensive plan for improving the efficiency of road paving and maintenance. The console panel for the power system, which is the final component needed for us to commission the plant, has been received. And soon the suppliers, the technicians, they will be on island to connect the plant so that it can be commissioned for operation. Our plan is to make sure the infrastructure is up to par in the interim and beyond. Finally, I speak about subsidy for electricity fuel surcharge. I want to remind residents that they should be witnessing some reduction in the electricity bills from this month, as government 3-month subsidy on fuel oil surcharge on residential bills kicks in. Persons would recall that last month I announced that Cabinet had approved for government to subsidize 50% of the fuel oil surcharge on residential electricity bills for the months of October and November, and for the month of December 2022, the subsidy will be 100% of the fuel oil surcharge for residential electricity bills. Government is doing this to ease the burden that is being faced by residents due to increases in oil and fuel prices on the international market, which has been ongoing since the Russia-Ukraine conflict escalated in February. The government heard the pleas from the residents, and we were able to get some money allocated to bring some relief to the people. We do empathize with residents. We do share their concerns, and we hope that this international situation will improve so that fuel and oil prices will be able to come back down. So we have been doing a lot of work to benefit the economy and to improve the quality of life for residents. And I want to thank all the persons in the Ministry of Communications and Works and various departments and units and the other bodies and across all ministries that collaborate with us. I thank you.
And we thank you, Deputy Premier, and you as well, Premier Wheatley, for your opening remarks of update. Now, as this is a press conference, we want to open the floor for question and answer to our media partners present, and just ask that you give your name and the organization that you represent prior to asking your questions. So we invite you now to do so.
Pleasant good day to all. Ron Grant of 284 Media. Premier Wheatley, I'd like to begin with you. Thank you for your update in regards to your recent travel. I do have a question in regards to leadership. We would remember the photo that was shared alongside yourself with the other OECS members, all being male. I want to speak directly to your government administration's move and interest in making sure that both sexes are represented within leadership and decision-making in the territory. What is your take on that?
Thank you for the question, Brother Ron. I think what we want to do is to ensure as much as possible in our society gender equity. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have 50% persons in the House of Assembly. it means that the electorate, persons who are electing persons, recognize that the most capable person, the person who is best able to represent their interests, should be the one elected regardless of their sex. And that goes throughout the whole public service and throughout the private sector. And I think that in the Virgin Islands, we've shown great gender equity because we have so many individuals in and out of politics who have been placed in leadership positions. You're speaking about persons who are deputy governors, speakers of the House of Assembly, attorney generals, the leader of corporations, managing directors of financial services companies, tourism directors. I believe we've done a very good job of ensuring that females in our society are greatly represented. And I also celebrate those females presently in the House of Assembly. Persons like Alvara Maduro Keynes, Honorable Alvara Maduro Keynes, Honorable Shireen Flax Childs, Honorable Shari DeCastro. And of course, females bring a very special brand of leadership to the House of Assembly. And certainly we celebrate them. And I believe as we evolve as a Caribbean society, that more women will be placed in the top leadership positions in the House of Assembly. But it's important to recognize and to understand that the electorate has a role in that. The electorate has to be able to see when you have someone who is capable, that they should be given opportunities, regardless of sex.
My next question, thank you, Premier, is directed at both ministers. In recent weeks, a number of civil servants thus far have been charged for quote-unquote breach of trust by public officials. Based on my understanding of breach of trust, now some of the facts as we know it do not necessarily match the offense. I want to ask you both specifically, are any of you concerned that our citizens and civil servants could possibly be taken advantage of by the law enforcement system based on the information within the Commission of Inquiry report? Honorable Reimer, I think you indicated recently that the situation has slowed down the civil service. As representatives of the people, isn't it somehow your duty as well to ensure that our citizens are not being charged just for being charged sake?
Well, in terms of the persons who have been charged, I wouldn't comment on any of those particular situations as they are before the court. And certainly I believe we have to allow the legal process to take its course. All persons who believe that they have been wrongfully charged, they do have recourse through the courts. They have the right to due process. They have the right to be able to have representation legally. And of course, we have to trust that the process will be just. Certainly, we were in the House of Assembly the other day, and we had the Jury Act before us. And that's just another example of us seeking to ensure that the justice system works properly. And where we find any deficiencies in the justice system, it is certainly our responsibility to correct those deficiencies.
As Premier, would you say that you're paying keen attention to the situation?
Oh, certainly I have to pay keen attention to the situation.
Minister Reimer, your take?
Thank you for the question. I too spoke about this on Tuesday at the House, and I know I spoke about the trepidation within the public service. And there are different mechanisms within the service that I think could have been used instead of going directly to the criminal aspect of charging public officers, as you spoke about breach of trust. There's a Public Service Commission that deals with disciplinary action for public officers. And I think that, I'm not sure if that avenue was explored before getting to the criminal side of it. So I asked the Premier to look into that matter because I think it's a serious one. And public officers, I know they're hired to do their job, and we all expect that they do their job with due diligence and do it with integrity. And when there are any mishap, we would hope that there are those mechanisms that they can resort to.
Thank you both once again. Go ahead.
Let me just add something significant that I want us all to be aware of, and I certainly will, seek information on what are the actions being taken through the Public Service Commission. But I just want to make sure that we all acknowledge that we have separate branches of government, of course, and the office of the DPP is completely independent, and I don't seek to have any influence whatsoever on whether the DPP charges or doesn't charge. So certainly within her office and within the police, they certainly have to weigh all the things that Honorable Raima and myself would be concerned about, but they have to weigh those things independently outside of any influence from any elected official or anybody else, because of course they're completely independent.
Minister Reimer, you mentioned in your remarks so eloquently about the various measures that are being taken to improve the various industries, particularly tourism. I have to ask you about that because you mentioned about the asphalt plant, which I appreciate that update. We're seeing so many efforts to improve tourism in the BVI. Of course, you mentioned starting conversations of the major airlines as well as with the cruise industry. Is the government, particularly your ministry, comfortable with inviting mass tourism stakeholders into the territory with the myriad of infrastructural problems that we are still working to rectify?
Well, I thank you for that question. I think we are more a luxury destination. I'm not sure that we have spoken or agreed that we would invite mass tourism into a territory. And if that's the case, definitely our infrastructure would not be able to accommodate having mass tourism in terms of our road infrastructure at this juncture, with our water infrastructure that is also aging. But we are working to make sure that our road infrastructure is up to par with the purchase of the asphalt plant. And I can say that it was the mandate of this government once we got elected to make sure that we have these equipment in place. We purchased the asphalt plant. We were unable to get it commissioned because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the company not being able to come into the territory as well. The panel that I spoke about, it took about six months to get to the territory based on the world market in terms of getting that equipment here. But we have put things in place with the equipment. We have purchased a new paver, a new roller, and various things to make sure that our infrastructure would be able to accommodate persons coming to our territory.
Thank you for that. And my final question to you, Premier, as it pertains to media in the BVI, I have to ask you as a member of the media, I want to talk about access and restrictions for the press. Premier Wheatley, how do you view the role of an engaged press within your administration and efforts being made towards good governance and transparency? At present, can you say whether all efforts are being made to strengthen and have engaged dialogue with the press in the Virgin Islands?
Thank you for the question, Ron. I think this press conference is an example of ensuring that the media have access to their elected representatives and their elected leaders. Certainly, of course, we favor a very strong media corps. The media has a role in keeping the public informed. I do, of course, sometimes become concerned about having more in-depth investigative stories, seeking to illuminate for the public. Certainly, I think we have to reflect as a society as to this brand of journalism, which is almost like clickbait journalism, where persons are seeking just to get hits on stories as opposed to keeping the public properly informed on matters. But certainly, I say we, in the Virgin Islands, we have a very good brand of journalism. Of course, I think it's always, in every area, we always have to push for excellence. We have different types, of course, media outlets and different types of stories as well. And I think the public also has a responsibility to ensure that they do their research and seek out as much information as possible. But having more information to the public is something that can only strengthen the society, in my view. And I'm a very strong component of media freedom and media having access to information.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Good day, Premier Whitley and Honorable Reimer. Kathy Richards, JTV News. First off, I want to start with you, Honorable Reimer, because we haven't seen you in quite a while at our press conferences, at these press conferences, for the want of a better term. And let's talk a little bit about the Terrence B. Lettsome International Airport runway. I would have heard your statement in the House of Assembly, given an in-depth report on the routers, and you briefly mentioned here. Where are we with the expansion of the runway, given the fact that you would have heard from several stakeholders the need for that expansion of the runway?
Well, thank you, Kathy, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Though you said I wasn't here recent, but I was able to have a good meeting with my newly formed board yesterday, the BVI Airports Authority Board, led by Theo Burke, and the mandate was given that this is the direction that the board needs to be taking the airport into, where we are speaking about increased airlift and expansion of the runway. What we have is over the years, we have done quite a lot of consultancies and have various drawings and so forth in terms of the expansion. So I don't think we need to recreate the wheel. And I know the Premier can confirm too that we have some investors that are ready to come in and assist with certain part of the airport expansion. So we are eager to get started in terms of making sure that the runway extension is a priority.
What can you say has or have been done in this regard between 2019 and today?
Well, the new board has been formed. I've been the minister since May 5th, pertaining to the airport. And what I know is during my short time, I have been reaching out to various airlines in terms of increasing airlift to the territory. You would have seen, I think about a month back, we were able to land an Embraer 190. That plane is able to take direct flights from Tortola direct to the mainland, Miami, and the Eastern Seaboard. So we have been working with that agency in terms of trying to cement that relationship to have increased airlift and have a direct flight to the U.S. as well. But what has been done is that I know the previous board, they had various options in terms of the airport expansion. I know there were plans to do some work on the adjacent land, the hung lands that we're all aware of, but we're not sure where that is at now, but the board would be able to give me a better update on that.
Okay, you briefly mentioned about the government's ability to do some subsidizing of the surcharge for electricity, and I think you mentioned this is with the hope that very soon the prices will go down for fuel. Did I hear you correct?
Well, I mean, it's our hope, it's everyone's hope that the Russia-Ukraine war would soon end, and we'll see where they'll do more production of oil, and the prices would come down. But in the interim, the government have committed to making sure, giving an ease to the territory, the residential customers, for that fuel oil surcharge. That persons are complaining about that has a major increase on their bill.
Okay, and should we wake up at the break of 2023 and see no significant decrease in that general price? Is the government prepared to do a further subsidy because I can tell you, when I look at my October bill, I see that, that subsidy made a great difference. Coming from a $5 from before this war to 100 and something and change, and now it's a little down. Are we prepared to do further subsidy if needs be in 2023?
Well, our plan is to ease the burden for the customer. I can't speak for the Minister of Finance, but I will surely be prompting him, if the prices remain the same, that we find some sort of funds to continue this ease for our residential customers.
Minister of Finance?
Well, Kathy, I'm glad that you can confirm that you did see some relief
Yes.
on your bill. I had one or two persons querying about the bills, but perhaps maybe they were looking at an earlier bill. So we're happy that that subsidy has been applied. So just for persons, to remind persons, it was 50% of the fuel surcharge for October, the bill that's due in October, 50% for the bill due in November, and also 100% of the fuel surcharge in December. And certainly we always have to keep an eye on the situation, as you said. As Honorable Reimer said, we all hope that fuel prices will go down soon. And if we continue to face these challenges, certainly we'll have to see what it is we can do to bring some level of relief to the public. But that's something we have to keep our eye on. And we certainly have to do all we can to ensure that we have a very good tourist season, which brings in the dollars, to make sure that we protect our financial services industry, that we seek ways to diversify our economy so that we can, increase our gross domestic product here and also increase government revenues. It's a difficult task that we're in right now, of course, having to finance everything that we have to finance, but certainly we can't forget about the welfare of our people.
Okay. Premier, okay.
And quickly, I just want to let those residential customers, as you mentioned, that it would be labeled fuel subsidy on their electricity bill, so they can look out for that.
Okay, BVIEC probably needs to update their data system, because when you look at where you try to get the details online, when you pay electronically, you're not seeing that aspect of it. So I guess they need to up the game. Premier, if you can tell me, you did send some love in the House of Assembly to the people of the 7th District. You are the premier of the territory, but you are also the district representative. What we've been hearing is, we know that you love us, but show us that you love us. We want to see tangible things. Can you say, as of the period that you have been the premier of the territory, what are the tangible things that can be seen done for District 7 and would not leave out 8 because they match?
Well, there's certainly going to be time, Kathy, to be able to defend my record to the people of the 7th District. That time is fast approaching, but just trust me, lots of progress has been made in the short time that we've been there. We've been able to confront some major challenges. There have been challenges over the year. I mean, just the sewage is one of them. That's part of the reason why some persons have seen, the roads not to be in the state where they should be, is because of the sewage program. We aim to get that sewage program completed, and we also, of course, aim to get a major economic project done, at least a development agreement signed for that in the Eastern Fairfax Bay Harbor project. 2 major projects, and of course, with all the other things that we do regularly for persons, all the different programs that we run in the district all the time. There'll be time for us to be able to defend all of those programs to the public.
You alluded to the knowledge of the unemployment issue in District 7, and during the House of Assembly, you said you didn't want to preempt the cabinet to say what is being done, but could you give us an idea how you plan to tackle that issue, because it's a sore point? And sharing those ideas even before it reaches the cabinet may very well allow you to hear from the people more, some of the things that you can do even better for those people.
Okay, well, we did pass the cabinet paper. I mentioned it in my statement. It has to do with a rated program. And we have a challenge with unemployment, not just in the 7th District, but across the entire territory. Of course, we don't have a problem generating employment because, of course, we give out hundreds and hundreds and perhaps thousands of work permits, and we renew work permits while we have persons locally who don't have employment. And so in some instances, we have a skills gap. Okay, we have persons who we have to be able to help to upgrade their skills. We have persons who need training, and also we have to have dedicated programs to help these persons find employment. So this is what the rated program is designed to do. So we'll be having apprenticeships, for instance, specific apprenticeships programs where the government will pay a portion of stipends and a private sector employer will pay a portion of the stipends and give these persons an opportunity to learn on the job, show what they can do, and we're hopeful that perhaps maybe the private employers will retain them. We also will be doing partnerships with the H. Laverty Stout Community College, who already have programs in place that help persons to gain skills. We live in a tourism economy, but, you know, and we're the sailing capital of the world. But we have so many young men who even love boats and love the sea, but yet these young men in the quantities that we would like to see were not becoming captains. So that's why I'm so grateful that certainly when I was Minister of Education and now as Premier and Minister of Finance, we're helping to support the Marine Training Program at the college to be able to provide our persons in our community with opportunities in the marine sector. And we've learned from places like Nanny Key and other places in the marine industry that they have almost 100% employability out of that marine training program. We want to take that same concept and extend it to other areas. Of course, we want to build on our hospitality program at HLSCC and get more persons into the hospitality industry. We had a solar training program at the college, which was very good. And of course, we are developing our green economy. And we want more of our persons to get employment opportunities in solar training, in a solar technician training. Also, we have agriculture. You should see us launching some agriculture training programs at the college in short order. And we also have, on the employment side of the rated program, we'll be providing persons in the community short-term employment opportunities, doing things like beautification, where we cut in the bush. Of course, we know that the way that we used to do bush cutting in the past, it's come under scrutiny. That's why people see that the bush is so out of control. But with this program now, we'll be able to provide persons who are unemployed opportunities to participate in beautification, painting curbsides, getting the place to look a lot better than it does right now. And these will provide short-term opportunities, and perhaps some of those persons, if they perform well, would be able to be retained by government through government's hiring practices, standard hiring practices.
Thank you, Boo.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Beverly Lewis from ZBVA Radio. And Premier Whitley, just picking up from that question Kathy just asked you, and you talked about the beautification, because the tourism season is starting as well as the cruise season. So do you have a timeline in terms of the persons in the rated program doing the beautification?
Thank you for that. I've been actually speaking since the cabinet paper passed on Wednesday. We've been speaking with all agencies concerned so that we can get persons registered on the rated program. So persons are going to be learning very soon, next week in fact, how they're going to get registered, where they have to go to get registered. And we've had a lot of persons already asking about it, so we know that they're ready to get registered. So we're hopeful that we're able to get them registered next week, and then we can start going to work with having an orientation for the individuals, perhaps at the auditorium, Eileen Parsons Auditorium at the college, and then of course getting to work, helping these persons to develop themselves, to seek opportunities, and to help us with work that really needs to get done in the community.
We've learned from the CDB this week that they're making monies available to countries in the OECS, and of course I know that you attended the meeting in Montserrat last week. In terms of monies that they're making available, how is the BVI going to benefit from that? And probably to Minister Reimer too, when you spoke about the airlift, can you give a list of some of the airlines that possibly we can expect who will be coming to the BVI? And there's also a need to increase intra-regional travel as well. But first, Premier, your response to the CDB monies.
Okay, well, actually CDB was in the BVI some weeks ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, We had a very good discussion. Before that, I had a meeting with the president of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Leon. When I was in the Cayman Islands, we had a meeting and a discussion. And, you know, they've helped us a lot in the past, and they're making it very clear that they would like for the BVI and the Cayman Island, and for the Caribbean Development Bank to continue the strong relationship that we've had. We've had some very frank discussions about concerns that we've had in the past, and we also were very open about the gratitude for how they've assisted us thus far. And so certainly Caribbean Development Bank certainly will be an option when we go to market to be able to get a loan, some of the loans that we've been speaking about, to continue our recovery and our development. And certainly there are other programs that we benefit from the CDB. Of course, we've benefited a lot from training as it pertains to our procurement practices. And of course, as we have a new procurement act, there's certainly need to make sure that all our public officers are trained, and CDB officials have helped us with that tremendously. And there are lots of other things that the CDB does, etc. For instance, we've had the CDB provide us with resources for our scholarship trust fund. That's something that we're looking into as well. And they also offer assistance in areas sometimes in small business development, etc. So we're exploring all the opportunities. We've been a big contributor to the bank. We want to benefit from all that we can as a territory.
Thank you. From the Routes Conference, we were able to speak with airlines like JetBlue, Frontier, American Airlines, Air Canada, quite a few. They're also anticipating the extension of our runway. But we've also been in conversation with Antilles Airlines from the Caribbean. We've been in conversation with Win Air, Silver Airlines. So we're hoping to see more airlift come into the territory from our Caribbean airlines as well.
And I should say as well that while I was with my OECS colleagues, you know, it's a popular topic that comes up in terms of LIAT. And as we know, the old LIAT 1970 or whatever year it was. 1974, certainly went bankrupt. And they have a new LIAT. And this effort is being led by Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda and Honorable Gaston Brown. And we certainly support the effort, and we've supported the discussions which have been taking place. It was discussed at the OECS about getting LIAT, I believe it's 2020, LIAT 2020,
Correct.
up and running, so that we can benefit from LIAT. We used to complain a lot about LIAT, but we miss LIAT badly.
Yeah, we do.
And Premier Whitley, that UK agency you spoke about that the government is working with in terms of investigating the boating accidents. You spoke about the recent boating accident down at West End, but it's been a year and we haven't heard the outcome of that investigation where Frandy Martin Jr. was killed and other persons were injured.
Yes, actually, that's something that I certainly will. I didn't discuss any of the details of the boating accident with the investigators that were here, but that's something that I would like to bring up as well with Director of the Shipping Registry, Mr. John Samuel, and also the governor, because of course the governor had requested that these investigators come. They came from Southampton in the United Kingdom. So that's something that I plan to take up as well in terms of updates on the Frandy Martin case.
And finally, I know you were very eager, along with Minister Penn, to attend the GMC next month. With the postponement, is it much of a setback for you? Because I know one of the things you wanted to talk about, especially, is the ordering council.
Well, certainly we're going to continue to press. We're going to continue to engage the United Kingdom on the matter of the ordering council. As you know, the OECS came out with a very strong statement. And persons should know that these statements don't just come about out of the blue. it's due to our diplomatic engagement. I should say as well, we made a strong statement at the UN C24 meeting. There is a resolution on the BVI, and next month in November, where they have the fourth committee meeting, that resolution will be ratified at the fourth committee of the UN. So we continue to work with our regional colleagues. Certainly, what has taken place with the OECS, we can also expect similar engagement with CARICOM, of course, and all of our partners, our OT colleagues as well, have been very supportive. We're going to continue to engage with our regional counterparts. We're going to continue to engage on an international level through the UN C24 and other bodies. And we'll also continue to engage directly with the governor and with the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office. We're waiting for a new date for the JMC, and there's a possibility that we may have a visit even before the JMC takes place when a new minister is appointed. But rest assured, we're not going to go to sleep on this particular matter. It's very important for us as we go through this period of reform that we do it in a democratic framework, a framework that has integrity, and it's not based on any form of coercion.
Thank you. Good morning. Dean Greenaway, Virgin Islands Daily News. Let me start with you. Just two questions for you, Honorable Rima, and thanks for the update on what is happening internationally on your recent trips. Could you give us updates on what is happening locally on many of the projects? Let's start with Carrot Bay, for example, with the reclamation that's going on. And we are approaching the time of the year where we get a lot of rough weather, and we know the areas they have down there. And when you expect that to be completed?
Well, thank you for the question. I always try to give updates on everything. In terms of the Carrot Bay revetment, we are hoping to see work resume next week. We are putting in the curtain wall, and we're hoping to get some more rocks. And next week you would see some work happening on the Carrot Bay revetment project.
Is there a completion date?
Well, based on how things happen, sometimes there's a delay with material. There are other issues with variations and so forth. So I don't want to give a completion date as yet, but I can give updates as to the progress of the works.
Any of the other projects that you have going? Well, I know we did an interview on the market before. What about other projects that you might have? I know you were doing in your district, I forget what it's called.
Well, that's the First Step Entrepreneur Program. That is a pilot project for all those aspiring business persons within our community who want to own a brick and mortar location. So we thought it necessary to create a pilot project so that persons would be able to own their own property. And once that continues to grow, then they can progress into a much bigger space. The issue is that the contractors, based on the last thing that was told to the ministry, is that they're waiting on one container that was shipped from overseas that should be able to put the panels in, complete the framework and put the panels up. And I'm eager to see that project come to completion as well. We have quite a lot of persons interested in being able to take up space there at that location. So I can find out from the contractors what's the ETA on this container, so that we'll have a better sense of when works would be completed there. The Market Square, you spoke about that. I think we have about 3 more kiosks to be completed. The road works have begun, the access road. I think the sidewalks they are being constructed as we speak. Work continues in there. You'll see the solar lights have been up. Some of the buildings are starting to be paved. We install a lot of water lines and so forth in there, getting ready for persons to be able to utilize those spaces. The Eastern Longlook sewage, that project continues. We have a contractor now doing some lateral lines. I'm not too sure what the names are, but I know by the Stickett area, come now by Dr. Pickering's area. So works are ongoing on the sewage project up in East End. We also are awaiting the tender for the lift station there by, I think, is Long Swamp. That is out. We are waiting for that to come in. We also had the Paraquita Bay plant. We were hoping that those bids actually came in, but the tenders board decided that based on some issue with the tenders, they would resubmit the tender. And we signed a contract for Bird Point Sewage Plant. We're excited about that. That has been done from 2017. The contractor was given a mobilization. They are purchasing the equipment, and they expected that those equipment should be on island by January 2023, with a completion date of about middle of the year 2023. The Frenchmanski Bridge, I know we have, that was completed, opened, but there are still some small remedial works to make the flow of traffic a bit more easier. And we are hoping that with the asphalt plant being commissioned, that will help with paving of the area as well. And also we did the work in Paramtong, where the bridge was compromised, and we rebuilt that. And again, we are waiting the commissioning of the asphalt plant so that we can have that areas for smooth traveling. And we just asphalted Fishbay Road as well. That's a project under the RDA, and that took a bit of time, but we are happy that the works are about completed there as well.
Thank you for that comprehensive update. My final question, I noticed that, say the road up at where water and sewage was working up at Sophie Bay Hill, it led to an accident the other day. Why does things really take so long? Who's currently responsible for water and sewage department? And is this department sufficiently financed to be able to carry out the works that they want to do?
Well, thank you for that question, and I hope no one was actually injured in that accident. And those are quite unfortunate situations. You asked who is responsible. It falls under the portfolio of the Ministry of Communications and Works. And the reason why at that time I understood that the road wasn't finished is that once there's a water leak, the water saturates, and you have to let the water dry. Let the soil dry some bit. But there was also an issue where the roller would not have been able to go down the hill or come up the hill because of the steep terrain. But I think the road should be repaired by now. I can't confirm. I didn't go there.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No,
but,
not I passed there last night.
Okay.
No, it isn't.
But I
There's
know
still the hole, and I think one of the barriers, I don't know, piece of it was further out in the road, so traffic had to kind of divert to the right.
Yeah, and the issue with water and sewage is that we, like myself, we go through the road where it's dug up and is not repaved. That is something that we are working on. We also had some. You asked about finances. There's no department really fully financed, I would say. There's always an issue. I think from 2011 we were seeing where they were asking for the budget to be cut. I know in my ministry we were allocated $55 million of the $300+ million budget. Only $12 million of that budget was allocated to development projects, where you would also include the repair for the administration building. You would see repair for the sewage project. So within that budget, where there's not that much to get done. And it brings some frustrations to the workers because they themselves, they want to go out there and make sure that the work is done. But what we are also working on too is to see what can be done in terms of laying the pipes above the road. That is something that we are investigating because we know we have an age-old system, and we want to get some pipes where they can probably stand above ground, so that in case of any leaks, it would be easier to repair. And once the road comprehensively are paved, then we won't have that issue of having the roads dug up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Honorable Premier, just a few questions for you. I must thank you. I did get the information that you promised the press conference, but I noticed there were some areas I couldn't really tell what has happened with the contributions to the sports by year. It just lumped everything together, and I was unable to glean anything based on what you had said. So I'd be grateful if they can improve that area. Well, that was the preface, but go ahead and.
No, I just say I apologize for that. I'll see if they can give you the information in a more detailed fashion so you can interpret how much money went to whatever area.
And by year.
And by year.
Of each year contribution.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Thank you. I know you've harped a lot on good governance, accountability, and but before that, I needed to ask, we had a murder in your district the other day, District 7. Has there been any leads or any updates, further updates on that? I noticed that the bar is currently closed. What can you tell us?
I haven't heard of any leads. Certainly, I call on persons to come forward with information and help the law enforcement agencies as much as possible so we can, bring these murderers to justice.
Okay. I know you talk a lot about good governance, accountability, and transparency. We aren't educated on how cabinet works, how decisions are made. We only get a summary of decisions. Is there a reason why we don't see like who voted for what, so that as voting public, taxpayers, we can make decisions? Is there a reason why that doesn't happen?
Well, Cabinet has a concept called collective responsibility. So even if you have a disagreement in Cabinet and a majority of persons have voted in favor of the decision, all Cabinet members have to basically defend those decisions. That's how the principle of collective responsibility works. So it wouldn't be in good practice to show the deliberations. The deliberations are supposed to be frank. They're supposed to be open. And certainly, the minutes, based on the Cabinet handbook are supposed to be confidential, okay? A decision was made some years ago for transparency purposes to publish the decisions. But certainly, it wouldn't be in keeping with Cabinet protocol to publish the type of detail you're speaking about.
Is there a reason why junior ministers aren't involved with Cabinet, and who decided that they shouldn't be?
Well, that's a matter for the Constitution. The Constitution says what the executive should look like. We did get an amendment to the Constitution to allow us to be able to appoint junior ministers, but the junior ministers are still a part of the backbench. And generally, you have to maintain a particular ratio of executive members to persons who are not a part of the executive. These persons are supposed to actually help to keep the executive, hold the executive accountable. Generally, well, of course, you only have five ministers and you have 13 members in the House. So what's 5 from 13? I think that's about 8 persons, right? So the other 8 persons, whether through the opposition or through the backbench, are supposed to help to keep the executive under control. You can outvote the executive 8-5 at any point.
Okay. I'm just winding on my questions. Last press conference, you said that there's a plan to borrow about $50 million. And this is a question that came from the street, as a matter of fact. You talk about getting value for money. Leaders always say there is no money, then turn around and sign hefty consultancies. Furthermore, government projects seems to have all these inflated costs. Why is it that taxpayers and voters, does taxpayers and voters really get value for money? And why isn't a maintenance included in government projects? And why there's always this no money seeds planted?
Okay, you said quite a bit there.
Yes.
Let me first deal with this concept of value for money. The intent is through open competitive bidding, to be able to get the lowest price for the job, for being able to complete the job successfully. Well, I've seen examples like others where, I didn't think we got the best price based on the tender process. And I think that, those persons in the Central Tenders Committee have to examine the process to ensure that that it works well, to make sure that we get the best value for money. And I think it's always something that we have to continue to examine and to explore. But the basic concept is true: open competition, that you get better prices. Of course, in terms of how persons charge government, etc., I know that to be a challenge, and I think we have to find ways of making sure that we get the best prices. Because a lot of times these central tenders, and Honorable Reimer would probably be able to speak better about this than I do, because of course the nature of his ministry. But sometimes you have an engineer's estimate that will give you, and of course you would get the estimate from an engineer you can trust, okay, whether it works for government or outside of government. But you get an engineer's estimate, and that would be able to kind of give you an idea how much this project should cost. And of course, it would be the bidder who had the price closer to the engineer's estimate who would be successful. I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything further on that. So those are types of things that's supposed to help against this whole idea of the inflated costs. And I do think, Brother Dean, we have to do a better job of educating the public about how much it costs to do projects, because sometimes I don't think that the public, because perhaps you need somebody who's an engineer or somebody to explain why it costs, what it costs. You might just hear that it's an elevator, but you may not know about the full scope of works that have to go into developing the particular project. You just see a headline on Vino or one of these other esteemed websites, and then you assume, oh, an elevator costs $1 million, not knowing the full scope of works. And if you are a construction company seeking to do that scope of works, you probably would have charged the same amount of money to get it done. So generally, I think we need more education about the costs of construction and doing business. Sometimes we're not fully aware of it. And I should have written down some of your other questions. You just want to repeat them for me quickly, sir?
And I think, Premier, I could just chime in quickly
Yeah.
as you spoke about the procurement process and the role that Cabinet plays in terms of when bids are received. I think since I've been there since 2019, there's been one time that Cabinet went against Central Tenders Board, their recommendations for any tender that came in. What happens is that the Central Tenders Board, they review the bids based on whatever the criteria are, and at that stage, then they draft a paper, it gets to Cabinet. Cabinet decides on what the Central Tender Board recommends, and that is where it goes out into the public. So persons might think that the Cabinet is actually being complicit or being, I won't say nefarious, but then persons are thinking that Cabinet is the one that's just picking these persons. But when in fact, Central Tenders Board, they go through, they do their due diligence, and the document comes to Cabinet, and then that decision is made.
Now that you say that, I just remember something. During the budget address, for example, the previous premier said the multipurpose sports complex, there's about $400,000 available for that. And of course, I heard that part. But then shortly after, we saw a contract for $786,000. What was the? I mean, both of you were in Cabinet, and what caused that discrepancy there?
Well, I think what I'm aware of, what I think there were two. There was a bid for the replacement and a bid for refurbishment, and I think the Central Tenders Board decided that replacing the AC unit at that time would have been the better value for money, and that's what came forward to Cabinet.
Okay. And Premier, please do a lot to educate the public, because many times I run into people asking this and that, and you're saying about education. So I think it would be good if you really make sure that happens and the public is really informed.
I agree with you. You had a
No,
couple
I
other
think
questions?
you've answered it. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, thank you, Dean.
Good afternoon, Dana Campbell with the BVI Beacon. So first question I had was about the upcoming trip we have to the UK. As we know, that's fast approaching. Premier, could you offer a bit more detail about what specifically you hope to accomplish with this trip and what other conversations you hope to have, possibly about medical marijuana that hasn't passed yet, anything along those lines?
Well, unfortunately, the trip has been postponed for right now, but we hope to have the trip in the future, in the near future, and we hope to discuss things like climate resilience. We hope to discuss, of course, partnerships with various UK agencies in helping us to develop our economic resilience and other things like that. Of course, environmental issues are always very prominent on the JMC agenda, and of course, a constitutional relationship with the United Kingdom is also something that we will discuss. From an individual standpoint, of course, we have remained engaged on medicinal cannabis, and we hope that we can make enough progress that sometime in 2023 we would do the work possible so that we can receive assent to the legislation.
All right. And earlier you mentioned the Jury Act. Could you provide a bit more detail about the amendments that were made to that, and specifically how it tackles the 10-year residential issue that was debated?
We made a few amendments. I don't think there were very many amendments as it pertains to the 10-year residency. We removed the provision that opened the jury to anyone who's just been here for 10 years but wouldn't necessarily have a certificate of residence. We felt, of course, that perhaps that you needed something to really tie them to the BVI, some sense that they were settled in the BVI, that they were committed to remaining in the BVI. But we did keep the provision where persons who had certificates of residence and were here for at least 10 years would be able to join the jury pool. Considering the fact that they have a certificate of residence, I think you can safely say that they are part of the community and can be considered, a peer of anybody who might have been on trial. They can take on their civic obligation and be a part of the jury pool. And that certainly would have helped the pool to expand. And for persons who don't know, this is a matter that's been discussed for many, many years, way before the COI. In fact, Mr. Ray Harris, who led the Law Reform Commission, had amendments to the jury, a bill proposing amendments to the Jury Act. I think that went back to even around 2008, 2009. And as you know, the Jury Act was very old. It's from 1914 and in bad need of modernization. And it came across very clearly to us that the size of the jury pool did cause a challenge when they were seeking to get jurors for specific trials. You'd have persons who would be related to the people who were being charged, related to a policeman or related to an attorney, etc. And that created great difficulties in getting a jury panel. And we hope that we would have helped to assist that challenge with the amendments.
And as we know, we're coming up on November, and the election is due in the spring. Do we have any concrete plans yet for how the government plans to progress?
Well, of course, as I said before, traditionally the campaign period is when the House dissolves. The House is due to dissolve in March, and of course, we expect all the persons who are contesting the elections to go ahead and, those who are elected to defend their record, and those who are not presently elected to say what they want to do for the community. Until then, we're going to continue working hard on fulfilling our mandate as elected persons. All of us campaigned on things within our districts or the territory at large. And of course, we have a a very robust and ambitious agenda that we're seeking to complete, despite the challenges that would have taken place, in this 4-year period, including a pandemic and, of course, a COI, among other challenges. We still feel very good about the progress we've been able to make. And in the remaining time, we're going to be going very hard at accomplishing our goals and fulfilling our mandate.
And I'm not sure if this question would be better suited for Honorable Reimer or Wheatley, but do we have an update yet on Althea Scatliff and whether the plan is to completely tear it down or rebuild, and a general timeline?
I don't know if you want to address.
Well, thank you for the question. I know parents are concerned, and I've been in dialogue with the Minister for Education since it sits in my constituent, and the plan is to tear it down. The engineers, they decided that it's not safe, so we are going through the process. I think we're waiting on actually Public Works right now to be able to give us a bill of quantities to see what it will cost for us to tear it down. I know the plan is also to tear down the cultural center as well. That has been sitting there for quite some time. When the bill of quantities came in, it was about, I think, $75,000 at that time a few years ago. So we're hoping to revise them and be able to have those structured tear down. And the plan will be afoot to start with the rebuilding process.
And then a final question for Honorable Reimer. So as we've highlighted, tourism is an important part of the economy. Considering people are starting to book their trips more and more early, do you know if the Tourist Board has any specific campaigns planned and whether those would be launching anytime soon?
I think the Minister for Tourism would be best to answer that question, as I know you also have the Lobster Fest and the Cultural Month and so forth coming up.
Yeah, we as we know, the tourist season kicks off in November, and we have a wide range of activities planned for the month. Certainly, we know the Tourist Board specifically has the flagship event in the month of November, which is Lobster Fest. Lobster Fest is celebrating 10-year anniversary, so it should be a grand affair, and we're inviting everybody to come over. Of course, we've heard that a lot of the hotel rooms and accommodation has been booked, but persons should take the opportunity to maybe rent a cat or rent any kind of yacht and come over and spend some time in Anegada. And of course, we'll have the ferry going over there. And of course, we've taken the decision to merge Culture and Tourism Month because we want culture to be a much more prominent part of our tourism product, and we have a whole list of activities slated for there. But we know that we expect a good season, and we know that the Tourist Board is very feverish about informing all our industry partners and all our potential visitors about what's happening in the BVI. Honorable Reimer, I believe, went to some shows that they've had recently at the Annapolis boat show, where we had the Tourist Board present along with the Shipping Registry supporting the jurisdiction. And of course, we have lots of other road shows planned on the Tourist Board. We had events recently in Puerto Rico. And of course, they'll be coming to me to increase their budget in the new year. And I'm inclined, actually, I have a real fight with my financial secretary and the Ministry of Finance. They do a very good job of keeping the budget balanced, but I was pushing them for a little more here and a little more there. And we're going to be pushing to get more money in the Tourist Board's budget so they can do more promotions. I, in particular, am very interested to see us increase our imprint in South America. You know, you have places in South America, you have persons who are avid boaters in South America. We have other places. I was just speaking to the accident investigators who are here from Southampton, and they told me Southampton is somewhat of the boating capital of the United Kingdom, and we didn't have as much of a presence there. And I wanted to make sure that we go to places like Southampton and do road shows and get more persons to come here to enjoy our great sailing waters. That's going to require more marketing. But I think the tourist board will soon, especially with the launch of the season, be coming to the public and speaking about all of the different campaigns that they'll be doing to promote the jurisdiction. But let's all do our part, because tourism is everybody's business. And let's do our part to promote the destination. You know, post some pics. You know, Kathy is very good at that, posting pics on the Facebook and letting you know about all of the activities that we enjoy here in the BVI. Let's all do our part in promoting the jurisdiction.
Premier, I see indications from one more media personality for one final question, if you're open to taking that.
Yes.
All right.
We're very accessible to the media.
Thank you, Premier, but it's not one. I'll just list it and allow you to respond to them if you may. Elmo Stout High School campus, where we're at with that. By elections, will it happen or not? I heard you made a statement in the House of Assembly during the closing when you said that you needed to shed some clarity on when you talk about when you spoke about how many sit-ins a legislator has to be before he vacates his seat. And lastly, I know it hit the public, and so I'll ask you the question to shed some clarity on the request from media houses for questions in advance for press conferences.
Okay, as it pertains to the 1st District seat, I did give some clarity in the House, because I was saying first that if you miss 3 consecutive sit-ins, the seat would be vacated, but that was not completely accurate. It's more than 3 consecutive sit-ins, which would be 4, at minimum 4. So we'll be starting the 4th sit-in on Tuesday, and at the conclusion of that sit-in, the seat would be vacated, of course, unless the member shows up, which is unlikely,
Or the speaker.
or whether the speaker excuses, but we already know what the speaker's position is on that. To have a by-election, that sit-in has to finish before November 12th. And I think it's unlikely. It's unlikely, the sit-in starts on the 1st, and it's unlikely that the sit-in will finish before the 12th. Under the amended Elections Act, if the House dissolves within 4 months of when the seat becomes vacant, then you don't have to go to a by-election. And we'll just have a general election in May. But it's unlikely that we'll finish before November 12th, because we have some very heavy bills on the order paper, and a lot that we want to get accomplished before we have Budget Day. Budget Day is, of course, when we give the budget speech, and then we have to do stand-in finance, and we have to come back and have the budget debate all before the close of the year, so that we can have a budget ready for January 1st. So we have to have Budget Day, and we'll have to close off the sit-in so that we can do the budget. So and with some of the heavy things on the order paper, I don't think it's likely that we'll finish those before November 12th.
ESHS?
Elmo Stout High School seems to be progressing very well. I believe the minister gave a update on it in the House of Assembly. Unfortunately, we had a number of things that happened that delayed it, including paint being spilled while it was at port in Jamaica, and they had to, get more paint. Of course, they had delays in terms of the windows arriving. But let me just celebrate the contractors who did a wonderful job of getting the building ready. And if not for some of those delays, I'm pretty sure that they would have finished on time. And of course, RDA for their wonderful management of the entire project. But it would seem, and I certainly have to make sure I confirm this with the Minister of Education, but it would seem as though it should be ready sometime in November.
Okay. Questions from media houses?
Oh, okay, in terms of questions on the media houses, I saw a story on the esteemed, one of the esteemed websites, and it spoke about media freedom, which was confusing for me, because certainly we requested questions in advance, because I was getting a number of questions from ministries outside of my ministry, and I wanted to be able to answer those questions when the media asked them, as opposed to saying, let me go and get information and come back. So it's just an effort to keep the public better informed and to get the media's questions answered. And it is practice in other places that in some situations you submit questions in advance. And that's how it works in the House of Assembly. You know, when you go to the House of Assembly, we get the questions a certain time in advance so that you can give the public accurate information when you're asked in the House. So it's a similar kind of principle, but it's nothing for the media and I to have a fight about.
Okay, you have withdrawn that?
No, I still would prefer questions in advance, but what would happen if you insist on asking me questions without sending it to me in advance? I'll just have to delay answering it if I don't have the information.
Thank you, Premier.
Yeah.
And thank you, the media and the audience, and our Premier Wheatley and Deputy Premier Minister for Communication and Works,
Thank you.
Honorable Rima, for your well-ventilated statements, opening statements, answers, and questions from the media. And of course, you, the audience, for tuning in, whether via Facebook or radio. And I encourage you, the public, to always look for our timely and accurate information on all government matters on our website, bvi.gov.vg, on Facebook and Twitter at BVI Government, and on Instagram at GISBVI. So this brings our press briefing to a close. I'm Desiree Smith. Have a good rest of the day.